Hello guys, I want to talk about this thing called addictions. I want to record this because I think it's important to address, and I do believe that addictions is a big problem, and before you work on helping improve and getting better, that this thing called addictions needs to be addressed. So I want to start out by reading the definition of an addiction. It says an addiction is a persistent, compulsive dependency on a behavior or substance. And there's two types of addictions: substance addictions and process addictions. Now, substance addictions is like alcoholism, drug abuse, smoking, and process addictions are like spending, shopping, eating, sexual activities, such as internet porn, masturbating, or other things like that. Addictions are a huge problem. We live in a world that influences addictions. Billboards, TV, you turn on the internet, and all kinds of things that we're exposed to just creates so much addictions. I remember when I was driving in Las Vegas on my last visit, there was huge billboards of marijuana plants just advertising how everybody should go to a doctor and get a prescription. And these are the kind of things that we're exposed to in this world, where addictions are created by advertising. The worst problem is that addictions drain your bank accounts, they ruin families. Most of all addictions, the biggest harm it causes is low self-esteem in people and just low self-confidence. I was listening to this podcast series I mentioned earlier. A man named Roy Nielsen mentioned he was a former addict and wrote a book called Love Notes from Hell. He said the problem with self-development and seminars and doing stuff to better yourself is that when somebody goes out and they have huge addictions, it's like putting whipped cream on dog shit. I thought that was a very visual statement that he said, and it really got my attention. He said, first and foremost, you have to deal with your addictions, because if you don't deal with your addictions, you go out and try to improve, it really doesn't get you anywhere, because the core problem is the addiction. And I remember when I went a couple years ago, I was at the men's retreat with our church. There was, probably about 100 men there, maybe a little more. There was a series that people talked about, that the pastor talked about. It had to do with internet, and there was so many people that got up and started talking about how they were addicted to internet porn. That's a huge problem in our society right now, especially with men, and I think it needs to be addressed. I had a conversation with my son a couple weeks ago. He's 13 years old, talking about how there's so many influences in the world and how to protect himself, how to guard himself from all these influences. Now, I know in this company we talk about self-improvement and getting better, and I believe part of self-improvement is dealing with the core problem of addictions, dealing with it and putting that behind you, because all of us have the ability and the power to deal with our addictions and leave it behind us. And I want to mention it again because I believe that, we have to emphasize, because first and foremost, to deal with an addiction, you have to actually recognize that you have a problem. It's the first thing that has to happen, is recognition of an issue or a problem or an addiction. So substance addictions, again, is like alcoholism, drug abuse, smoking, anything to do with a substance that you have to take. And a process addiction, and most of us have process addictions that we don't, and some of us have process addictions and we don't recognize what the process addiction is. Like I said, I was at our men's retreat. The pastor started talking about internet porn, and I couldn't believe how many men that are church-going men that had this problem. They were talking about it as a group, and a support system was put behind it, where guys got together and they were going to meet regularly and talk about it and support each other. I was just totally amazed, because you're amazed on what you find out with support groups and find out what kind of addictions are out there. So we live in a world of addictions, and we have to deal with our addictions, and everybody has the power to deal with their addiction. And first and foremost, like I said, it's recognition that there's a problem. Once you recognize that there's a problem, then you can start working on it. Now, Google is probably your best friend. There is help out there on addictions, and I want to put myself out there as a person that can help. If anybody needs any kind of help with talking about an addiction, you can feel free to call me. I will be happy to help guide you or find a way to deal with it. You can go onto Google, and there's all kinds of support groups out there. And I think besides, recognizing there's an addiction or a behavior that needs to change, then it's going out and getting help and seeking help of groups out there. There's Alcoholics Anonymous, there's Drug Addicts Anonymous, there's Sex Addicts Anonymous. There's all kinds of groups out there that actually help with all kinds of addictions. Shoppers Anonymous, Gamblers Anonymous. There's so many. I just want to urge everybody to deal with the addiction, because if you don't deal with the addiction, like Roy said, it's like putting whipped cream on dog shit. You got to deal with the problem and then start putting self-development on top of that, because helping yourself become better, and that's what we want to do, is year after year, we want to become better than we were the year before. By not doing that, you're really limiting yourself, I believe, in what your potential could be. So until our next video, I'd like to encourage everybody to recognize if you do have any kind of addiction that we talked about and seek out and get some help. We'll put out more videos like this once a week, talking about just different areas of improvement, hopefully help make a difference. But I just want to thank everybody for what you do out there, and deal with the addiction if you have one. Thank you. Have a great day. Bye-bye.